In today's video, I'm going to talk about how classic cars and DLC tracks can improve F125. But first of all, if you missed, of course, the previous video where I talked about the fundamental changes, sort of like an overview of what needs to be changed for F125, I recommend you go and see this, check out that video as well. Now, this is sort of going to be split into two, because obviously classic cars, I don't realistically think we can get what ultimately would be the best thing, and it's something I've had an idea in the past about having a classic career mode, reliving, for example, Brawn's season. You know, we've seen quite a few old F1 games, F1 2020 being the most used, that have these classic season mods. And you know, I think reinventing that one into the game is realistically what we want from classic cars. But I don't think that is probably possible in the time that they've got. Realistically, I don't think that's going to be coming for F125. It may do, but I think that their focus will be on Breaking Point. But classic cars are needed because, you know, something else to drive. You can do online events in them, especially when, you know, with the equal cars issue at the moment. They could just use classic cars, for example. I know they're using the FOM car as well. But yes, one thing that could be done now better is scenarios. So the recent scenario at Brazil was Ayrton Senna 6th gear scenario, which, you know, was a realistic scenario from 1991. Obviously this wasn't done in a classic car, it was done in a modern day McLaren. Imagine doing that scenario in a classic 1990 McLaren as well. How good would that be as well? That realistically would be easy enough to achieve, I think. The scenarios that we had before on the previous F1 games for classic cars were not very good, but I think what they're coming up with now would be perfect for classic cars. Again, I'd love to have a classic season, rebuild that, redo Jenson Button's 2009 winning championship, maybe even relive 2007, or even an earlier season, as well, as we go back into back to the, you know, the 80s, even as well. But yes, there's a lot of content that could be done with classic cars, even with, you know, classic elimination mode, for example. There's a whole load of online events, and there's so many races from the past that they could recreate as scenarios. You know, we've got coming up to 75 years worth of F1 races as well, and there have been so many classics over the years. You know, from Johnny Herbert winning in 1999 after, you know, everyone else made 268 pit stops, to, of course, Jenson Button winning from the back of the grid 2011 in Canada. There are so many iconic races from across the years that could be recreated with specific scenarios as well. Now, yeah, as I said, I'd love to have, as I say, a season mode. Obviously, I should point out, you did have that option once, only on one F1 game made by Codemasters before, and that was in 2015, because that had the current cars and also the previous season. That is the only time that license been issued for 2 different years to Codemasters. That hasn't been repeated since. I think that they need to redo it as well. Sadly, because of course back in 2013 they had a different menu system for classic cars, voiced by the late great Sir Murray Walker. Sadly, he's no longer with us to voice that, which is a shame, because, you know, he is the voice of classic F1 as well. But yes, that's pretty much where classic cars is. They're not going to feature in career mode too much. I know that's how they started out, where you would race some classic cars on the weekend, but to be honest, I don't think they should be anywhere near career mode. They are purely for a classic career mode, which is what we want in the future. And then on F125, well, we'd love to have that, a classic career mode on F125, but I don't realistically think it's going to happen. But they could achieve quite easily specific scenarios, and that's where things go. And even, you could not even get to drive the car until you unlock the scenarios to get players to play the scenario. I know that's probably going to be an unpopular decision, but it's something they could sell to the EA to twist the money. Now, I'm going to move to DLC tracks, because obviously this has got the bigger effect than classic cars, because obviously it's a car. At the end of the day, you can't do much unless they, apart from having a classic career mode, you can't really do much with them. Outside of specific scenarios, events, etc. DLC tracks, however, you can have in ordinary day-to-day career mode to spice up the calendar, as we're seeing currently with Portugal. As well. Now, obviously, there's a whole load of issues with the calendar options, which I'm going to come back to in a separate video. But DLC tracks would definitely improve the racing, and especially also short layouts. They were removed in F1 2021. They need to be returned as well, especially also changing the Bahrain layout and adding the outer version as well that was racing 2020. Some of the short layouts are actually quite fun for racing on different online lobbies, doing events, etc., with them as well. But yes, obviously I'd love to. There are so many tracks, from down the years, like Hockenheim, the Nürburgring, and this could also, test interest in tracks that we haven't been to in a while, because there's been a lot of talk about returning to South Africa with Kyalami as well. Obviously, pretty sure if Franco Colapinto, the interest that he's gathering from Argentina continues to rise, that talks about bringing back the Argentine Grand Prix could be on the cards as well. So, yes, there's a lot of tracks there that could be on the grid. Malaysia, Turkey, fan favourites to drive. Not in the game because they're not on the calendar anymore because of money. There are tracks on the calendar that shouldn't be on the calendar as well. I've made my feelings known about which tracks they are as well. But, yes, having those additional tracks, not only you can use them in your career mode from Season 2, but also you can race online with them as well. And obviously, it provides something different, because at the end of the day, some of the circuits haven't been updated, and you race them so many times that it just gets a bit stale sometimes, especially in the shorter career modes. If you pick, I want to basically providing a wider choice for people to race on. And again, when there's not F1 Grand Prix on, you can use these tracks to host those specific F1 World scenarios as well, because obviously they've have had some classic races over the years too, at a load of circuits. Yes, that would be lovely to see. But yeah, that is pretty much it. I've outlined the benefits. I don't see any disadvantages, really. I know there's probably a licensing issue with classic cars, which they've dodged before by putting in those useless 25 rated drivers, but they have more Mighty Icons now. How good if they want people to use those Mighty Icons, allow them to race them in a Grand Prix mode where you can race Nigel Mansell in his Williams, for example, race Ayrton Senna, of course, against Alain Prost in their McLarens, or even Prost in the Ferrari as well. Having those specific scenarios and races from across the years would be good. And obviously there are so many tracks that you know, should be racing us had seen so many iconic races from over the years that they should be at least considered to be including. You know, like as I mentioned, Hockenheim, the Nürburgring, you know, Kyalami even as well. Yes, long track, even tracks that, you know, haven't been raced on for years, like Long Beach as well. You know, if you want a track in New York, then, you know, they could then turn to Watkins Glen, for example. Yes, there are endless possibilities and ideas. If you've got ideas about how to implement classic cars and DLC tracks, let me know in the comments below. If you've got ideas about how to improve F125 other than getting rid of EA and Codemasters, as well as their contracts up for renewal, as I've mentioned in a previous video, then also let me know in the comments below. But yes, that's where I'm going to leave it today. If you have enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, see plenty more F125 game idea videos as they come out. Until the next video, then I'll see you next time. Take care, enjoy your day, and goodbye.